Hello and welcome to the Midgard Press. My name is Jay. So today we are going to cover, well, as we did with Rittermound, we're going to take a couple days and go over Bothlid's Lode. So this is the suggested second module adventure. Now, granted, your players don't have to play everything in line. They can do whatever they want. If they want to go to the village of the day before, let them. If they wish to go to the Tower of Sighs first, let them. But this just happens to be the way that the adventure book for Free League, or the adventure book for Dragonbane from Free League happens to be. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Bothlid's Lode. At the end of a deep ravine on the fringes of the foggy Coomer Mountains lies Bothlid's Lode, an abandoned and flooded dwarven mine where one dwarf's greed 200 years ago unleashed an underground horror and sealed the fate of hundreds of her kinsfolk. So, the situation. The story of Bothlid's desperate search for riches in the mine that bore her name is widely known. Bothlid spurred her workers to dig deeper and deeper until they finally broke through a huge underground mass of water. The mine was flooded and a terrible beast was set loose. Some say Bothlid knocked on the gates of the netherworld. The player characters can learn about Bothlid's Lode through rumors, page 17, and the adventure cards. The site is a possible location for one of the 4 dragon statuette pieces, page 8, which in that case is found inside the sarcophagus in room number 10. Furthermore, an orc chieftain, Maladuk, has now made Bothlid's Lode her unlikely fortress during the escalating conflict with Koth. Something the player characters can find out by questioning goblins or orcs from her clan during their travels in the Misty Vale. See random encounters in Chapter 4. However, the player characters do not need this information to play Bothlid's Lode. When the player characters arrive, Maladuk is holding a war council with her subordinates. An encounter with player characters can end in different ways depending on the player's actions. And I will attest to this. I have had player characters go into the situation 3 different ways, and it's hilarious. It's just hilarious. So, meanwhile, the White Death, the monstrous serpent let in by Bothlid's foolishness, slithers through the flooded tunnels of the mine. Let it show up from time to time, splashing in the water, lunging at someone, and disappearing again, to constantly keep the player characters on their toes. Then there is a constant presence of many dwarven spirits, the strongest of whom is Bothlid's ghost, who can also tell them where the piece of Eladin's statue is. But in exchange for this information, she demands that the player characters first eliminate the White Death. So if they leave the mine, so if your player characters go into the mine and then they decide to leave to take a shift rest, roll a d6 per shift on the table of 107 in the rulebook. Okay, so we are going to talk about the random events and then the water in the mine, and then we'll talk about locations in the next episode. So as always, for every stretch of time player characters spend in a room searching it or taking a stretch rest, you can roll on the table below. The room descriptions indicate where random events can take place and which die to roll. You can also simply choose a suitable event. So, again, you're going to roll a d12. 1 through 6, nothing happens. But a 7, you have rattling chainmail. The distinct rattle of chainmail is suddenly heard from a dramatic, appropriate direction. And they say that because they're not sure where it will specifically happen, so they let you as the GM kind of, course that. These are echoes from the time when dwarves inhabited the caves. All player characters must make a will roll to resist fear. 8 of the D12, Dwarven Spirits. The player characters feel a cold breeze down their necks and and hear faint voices whispering almost inaudibly in an old dwarvish dialect. All player characters must make a will roll to resist fear. Those who succeed can roll languages to make out the phrases, "Help me, I'm sinking, air, white death." 9 of the D12, Cascade. There is a crackling sound inside the rock wall, which moments later bursts into a cascade of stone and water that hits the player character. The victim must make a evade roll. On a failure, they suffer 2d6 bludgeoning damage and must roll to resist cold. Page 54 of the rulebook. 10 of the D10, Lure of the Water. A beautiful light is seen below the surface of the water. All player characters must make a roll against willpower not to be lured head first into the water. Once underwater, the victims must hold their breaths to avoid drowning. Page 53 of the rulebook. The enchantment is lifted if the victim loses at least 1 HP. Collapse. 11 of the D12. Part of the floor vanishes beneath the player character's feet. It takes a successful evade roll not to be swept away by the swirling water and end up in another room. The GM decides which one, and that's a fun one. 12 of the D12, the best one, the White Death. Suddenly, the White Death, on the next page, bursts out of the water, performs a monster attack against the player character, and disappears back into the tunnels. And then, of course, the water in the mine. Large parts of the mine are filled with water, which allows the White Death to move freely. It also limits the player character movement and creates tactical challenges. Since the water is freezing, the player characters must make a bushcraft roll to resist cold. Page 54 of the rulebook. For each stretch they spend in it. The water has 3 different depths, which are indicated on the map. So you have the shallow water. Here the cold water reaches no higher than the player character's chest. Dashing is impossible, but otherwise they can move normally. Deep water. The player characters can swim to cross the water in some places that they can see the bottom. See the rules for swimming and drowning on page 53 of the rulebook. And then bottomless water. There is no visible bottom beneath the surface, only darkness. Can only be crossed by swimming. So, there we have it. We have the beginning, the situation, and some random situations, random events that could happen within Bothlid's Lode. I do enjoy this one quite a bit. It is a fun one to run against player characters. So, go ahead and like this video. Check the description for my other sites, my Patreon, my Ko-Fi. Like this video, as I already said, but share this video, comment down below, do all the things. Make sure you are subscribed. So, until next time, my fellow nerds, my fellow Dragonbane friends, live on and game on.